Ooh, I've got 5 on it. Grab your 40, let's get keyed. I got 5 on it. Messing with that Indo weed. So you join me in my cheap e39 5 Series, which I picked up back in January of this year for €600, for no other reason than, like most of you, my fellow car enthusiasts, I spend too much time in the classifieds, and I love a good bargain. And I stumbled across this. It was in a dealership not too far away from where I work. I've had a previous E39 5 Series, and it had a manual gearbox, which we'll get to in a moment is not exactly the preferred transmission choice for the E39 5 Series for most. But for me, I like to switch my own cogs. So I thought, okay, I'll go up and have a look. I took it for a test drive. It didn't blow up. So I used my debit card, it being so cheap, to buy the car, and here we are 10 months later, and it's still putting a smile on my face. So 10 months has passed, and just the other day it rolled over 120,000 miles. It's now actually on 120,087 miles, which is not an outrageous odometer reading for a car which is pushing onto its 21st birthday, but a cause for celebration nonetheless, because cars like this are to some seen as a disposable item. So both age and mileage will cause a lot of them, and scrappage schemes will have caused a lot of them to have disappeared. Although the Bader-Meinhof effect of owning an E39 5 Series, I have seen quite a few of them, not quite a few, but more than I would have expected, knocking around lately, which is good, but kind of goes against the fact that I thought I was driving around in a much rarer car than I actually am. That's beside the point. What's it been like to live with? Pretty good, pretty positive. We'll start with what it's like to drive, seeing as we're on some twisty back roads. You can probably hear my beautiful straight six singing. We're on an uphill, twisty section here, which means you have to stay in third gear, because this is a pre-facelift 520i, which means it has the smaller capacity engine. It's just under 2000cc. When they facelifted the car, it went up to nearer 2200. It's technically a 2.2 litre, which is something to bear in mind if you're owning one, because the annual road tax on this car is $720 a year to tax, and that jumps up by €200 if you get a facelift car, because of the bigger engine. The bigger engine is more powerful. This car from the factory had 148 brake, and I think it's a similar-ish torque figure. It's a slightly they did revise this engine, so that the torque and power come in slightly earlier, but peak torque, it comes in at 3,500 RPM, and peak power is up, I think, at 4.5, 4.7 possibly. So when you do wind up the car, and I mean wind up as in wind up the engine, it will start to shift, but if you're in the wrong gear, as I am now, with my foot to the floor, that's 20 miles an hour. I'm in third. $30 miles an hour. So yeah, you do need to be in the right gear at the right time. Saying all that, if you are in the right gear, this being an ultimate driving machine, it is actually surprisingly fun to chuck around a twisty back road. Now, it prefers more open, sweeping bends, corners you can take in fourth. It's not a hot hatch by any means, but I think the key factor is, like any good car, I do take this car out when I have no destination in mind. I take it out just to go for a spin for the sake of driving it. That's a testament to any good car. there's a person on the road running, you maniac. As a long distance cruiser, that's where it's really at its best. I've taken this on a few 600 plus kilometer road trips, and it's been fantastic. It's quiet, it's comfortable, exactly what it was designed for. These cars were designed for the Autobahn, so at high speed, 120 kilometers plus, 120 kilometers max, it'll just eat miles in comfort and just a complete lack of noise, considering some of the seals around the doors in this car are past their best. The suspension is probably quite tired, but even taking all that into consideration, it's a joy to take down the country with your favourite passenger in the passenger seat. So all in it's been good. Has it caused me any trouble? Not particularly. When I bought it, the passenger side wing mirror glass was smashed. The previous owner did try and remedy that by putting a shaving mirror on top of the cracked glass, which meant you could see inside your own retinas when you looked into the wing mirror. But to use it as an actual wing mirror, it was terrible. So I've replaced it with an actual OEM piece of glass, which I got off eBay for reasonably cheap. Quick, easy fix. What else was wrong with it? The center brake light failed, which caused a bulb warning to come up on the dash. I thought it was just the bulb, but when I took out, the bulb itself wouldn't come out, so I then realised it was actually the actual module itself had blown and had fused the bulb to the module. There's another e39 5 Series. Hello! You see, they're not as rare as I thought they were. That was a silver one. I didn't quite see what engine was in it, but lovely. There you go. It's a coincidence. I wasn't expecting that to happen. What was I saying? Yes. So I got a new module again off eBay. I think it was £2. Pretty simple fix. Cost me slightly more than it should have because I bought the wrong bulbs. So that was completely my fault. Other than that, what else have I done? The thermostat failed. On one of those longer road trips, I noticed when I was on the motorway, the engine temperature was dropping. And the thing with that is, obviously it could be one of many things. So obviously my first gut reaction was the thermostat. Well, first I was like, I'll just top up the coolant and see what happens. And that was okay for a few days. But it turns out it was only a quick bodge. So with an issue like that, until you get in there and check the thermostat, it's only then when you know whether that's actually the problem. So thankfully, when I got my hands dirty and took off the old thermostat, it was completely fucked. And again, an eBay purchase, I got a new thermostat for, I think it was less than £20. It's a pretty easy job to fit. It's just a pain in the arse to get to because you have to take off the fan, and access isn't great. But one of the key tenets when I bought this car was that it was cheap to buy, and therefore I'm going to try and maintain it. I don't want to say on the cheap, I'm not going to cut corners, but I'm going to try and do as much maintenance as I can myself, and avoid buying OEM. Not necessarily not buying OEM parts, but not buying them directly from BMW, who will charge you an arm and a leg for anything. So pros and cons. Pros, it's cheap. It's been cheap to own, cheap to run, mostly. It is fun to drive. I would like something a little bit more sportier to accompany it. But as my sole car, it covers all bases pretty well. What else do I love about it? I like that it's Bogo spec. Well, I both like and dislike its Bogo spec. So it doesn't have the climate control. But I like the fact that it's got the cloth interior. I don't like leather seats. Speaking of the cloth interior, actually, there is a manual 530i for sale on Dundee at the moment, which is really quite tempting, although the price is just a bit too much for what it is. They're looking for nearly $5,000. It's got, I think it's 145,000 miles on it, and it looks pretty tidy. All that being said, though, it has the same cloth interior as my car, but it's red. Not that I'm a big fan of red interiors, especially if they're leather, but the fact that it's a cloth interior, I've almost considered buying it, taking the interior out and trying to sell it on, but that's a big gamble to take, considering the car is worth $5,000, or they're looking for $5,000, which I don't think I would risk my finances going down that road. Cons. So as much as I like that it's Bogo spec, I also dislike that, because since it only has the air conditioning and not the climate control, the air conditioning doesn't work. As I've said, it's a very good long distance cruiser, but it doesn't have cruise control, which would be lovely. Fuel consumption, the trip computer at the moment is saying it's averaging 31 mpg. Now, I've done some actual scientific calculations on that, and at best it's 10% out and 10% in the wrong direction. So it's probably at the moment high 20s, and yes, generally I think what you'll get mid to high 20s, and if you're really pushing on, you might even get that into the teens. So I'm gonna have to go full climb dance here because the sun is glaring. Beautiful winter's day in Ireland, crisp, dry, sunny, but bloody freezing. Yeah, so all in, what's next? Well, the NCT is due at the end of January. At a minimum, it needs 4 new tyres, because that's the only advisory I got at last year's NCT, that the tyres are too old. But hopefully it doesn't need anything else. Now I have driven it, I've exercised it, should I say, a fair bit in the year I've owned it, but it still feels and sounds like everything is okay. I haven't had it up on a ramp, I haven't looked underneath, but I was saying in that last NCT they didn't see anything too untoward or give me any warnings. So unless there's something catastrophically wrong with it, yeah, I think it's a keeper. It's got under my skin. I like it. The e39 5 Series is a car I've always admired. I did have an M Sport one previously, a few years ago, with the bigger engine. But as I'm advancing in years, I think I like this softer SE spec with small wheels and its big tyres and its slightly cushier suspension. Suits me more. So stay tuned. I think the next update will be around NCT time. I'm going to self-service it soon enough. It needs an oil and filters, and I'm going to do the spark plugs as well. But yeah, stay tuned, because this is only the opening chapter to what will probably be a longer journey. So on that note, excuse me, back to the studio.